Hello, and welcome to House Play D&D, the explainer podcast where one experienced dungeon master and one failed scriptwriter discuss D&D topics. My name is Kinsey, and my guest this week is Steve Fisher, actor, writer, and freelance dungeon master. Hello, Steve.
Hey, everybody, and this is how I really talk.
This is it. This is it. You're finally here. This is it. From across the pond, our first guest from across the pond. So it's a big moment. Big moment.
We've graduated. We've moved up. How to Play D&D is now officially imperial in its goals.
We're conquering slowly
Yes.
and poorly.
Very good. No, that's the message that people want from an American right off the bat, I think.
Yes.
No, this is good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, okay then, let's get into this because I think this is a really exciting topic this week, and I had never thought of putting this down on the schedule before. What is the topic this week, Steve?
This week we are talking about group patrons in D&D.
Let's get to it. Okay, so today's episode is about group patrons. The only time I've experienced group patronage is when my family got together to throw eggs at me. Steve, I've been riddled with ants for the past week because I filled my belly button with lemon curd. What am I doing?
Goodness, I mean, if outside of doing your best impression of an egg tart,
yeah, well, that's true.
Rightly say, I think group patrons are a really interesting tool to sort of structure a campaign around.
Okay.
Your I would say your baseline D&D experience sort of revolves around, you meet in a tavern, you hear about some relic or monster or something that is running amok or causing some magical interference in the landscape. You go, you solve the problem, you get assigned a bigger problem by somebody, and on and on it goes until you've punched God in the face. Group patrons offer, I think, a little flexible approach to that in the idea of what if our whole group had a shared unifying thing right at the top, right at the outset. And a lot of campaigns do start this way, but maybe are have people from very disparate backgrounds brought into a sort of singular purpose after the fact. Whereas if you're operating with a group patron, you can sort of, in a session zero, in session planning, in character creation, you can keep in mind like, oh, we all work for this particular person or entity or what have you, and it gives you fun, cool role play opportunities. There are a bunch of rules in Tasha's Cauldron of everything about how to sort of, as a DM, mechanize and quantify this relationship that you have to your group patron. And I think it really increases character and player buy-in from the start. If you're like, we know that we have a goal that aligns with something that already exists in the world, not something that we have to go find.
Let's break that down.
Yeah.
Let's break that down. So you said there, I was going to say, where did you first hear of group patrons in D&D and what are they? So you've like summarized that and you heard them from Tasha's. I had never heard of it. You literally came to me with the topic and I was like, that's brilliant. Outside of D&D, as a good reference, what would you say is like something to compare it to? Like my thought when you explained to me what it was, which is funny because I have Tasha's, but I'm one of those people who buy the books and don't ever read them. So
sure.
The ultimate Wizards of the Coast purchaser, which is exactly what they're dying for. Yeah. But I was thinking of, the guilds in any Bethesda game, essentially. So, like the Thieves Guild's a good example. You're kind of doing things for coin and you're going to do missions for them. And then there might be kind of like stuff going on and role play inside that guild outside of. Is that a similar thing? Is that a good comparison?
Yeah, I think that's a great comp. Yeah, think of the Thieves Guild or I forget the name of them, but the werewolf monster hunters from
Yes.
Skyrim
Yeah, yeah.
and all those guys. Yeah, but I think the Bethesda universes have a lot of really great examples of what this could be, but those could also, I think, be pretty well defined as like factions.
Yes,
Um,
agreed. Yeah.
and if you take the sort of classic like Forgotten Realms territory, your factions could be like your Emerald Enclave, your
Mm,
Zentarum, your Lord's Alliance, all that kind of stuff. And I think that is like an umbrella that group patrons can fall under, but we also can be talking about like individuals that
right.
you're working to further the aims of, and that is a that's a new, fun, sort of interesting way to approach it outside of like, oh, I'm working for this organization that has like maybe nebulous goals and leaders sort of conflicting with each other. But if you're working for a group patron, you can have that, or you
Yeah.
can be working to further the specific ends of a specific person. Which if your DM brain is activated, you're
Mm,
obviously like, well, I wonder how I can get them to turn on this person later down the line when it becomes a critically
yes.
dramatic, important moment. Yeah.
That makes yeah, I think that's a great example there of it's kind of important to divide them up because
Mm-hmm.
they can if you do that, they kind of offer different things as well. As a DM, you can be creating different storylines that are required based on the fact that they are guilds and factions and
Mm-hmm.
patronage, right? So I guess it kind of does help to separate them and put them in a list and be like, all right, this one can benefit from this way. If the cause, the kind of like cause and effect of dealing with this one, if it was a patron, is very
Mm-hmm.
different, the outcome to if I dealt with a whole guild, a whole faction.
Right, totally. Yeah, if you sort of have a little bit more wiggle room in like your
Yeah.
execution as a party if you're working for a faction. Like, oh yes, the buttoned up rule following leader of the faction doesn't like the way that you robbed that tomb, but the devil may care Machiavite leader of the faction is like, hey, we got the relic, man. Here's your money.
Yes.
Whereas if you're working for an individual, like there's much more clear parameters of like, this is what will please me about the completion of the quest, and this is what will make me so so mad, which is like a fun thing for a DM to play around with too. I find myself a forever DM for the most part, and it gives you the opportunity to really focus on a single very important NPC's point of view
Yeah.
as a like driving narrative force within the story, and it allows the players to develop a sort of more consistent relationship with the sort of powers that be in the world that they operate within. I mean, how many times has it happened where like your players interact with a person who gives them the quest, they go, they complete the quest, and then they're like, all right, see ya, and like they never see that person again because
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no real reason to, because they've graduated and moved on from that particular you know starter town, or noble in need of his marriage contract or whatever it is.
I think there's like, an important thing to kind of like focus on there as well is the fact that it could be a recurring character
Mm-hmm.
really helps with fleshing out that world as a DM because you've got NPCs that people might either hate to see you come back or look
Mm-hmm.
forward to come back, whether that's just once or just being heard about in a tavern. You don't actually come across them. We did an episode recently on Dishonored, the franchise, and Marshy, who often comes on the podcast, was talking about the fact that he
Oh, sorry, I'm
transferred
so
that
sorry.
game. That's okay.
I had a keep going. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, he transferred Dishonored that world into his D&D campaign, and
Mm.
just hearing about characters that people would have known from the games, but you're not seeing them because this is already set in the future to those games. But there's posters of them, people talking about what had happened. This kind of stuff really helps with the patron side of things when it's singular, right? Because you've got a kind of like a reason to go back, a reason to look forward to them. They've already kind of got, like you said earlier, like a relationship to how do I deal with this person? Well, I know they're really charismatic. That wouldn't work against them. I know this
Mm-hmm.
is the kind of thing they're usually after. So, there's it almost becomes a puzzle to break down.
Totally, totally. I think a big consistent complaint that a lot of real sort of hardcore TTRPG heads will have about 5e in particular is that the combat rules are so fleshed out, and the
Mm.
social encounter and the exploration rules are, I would say, more fleshed out after the 2024 update,
Yeah.
but they are still like far less sort of granular and specific and robust. And if you're, if you're very sort of devil may care, loosey goosey about social encounters, like great, that's an awesome way to go about it. But like having there be a clear, like mechanical, even just sort of set of suggestions for how to interact with and reward your players can be very helpful for dungeon masters, especially dungeon masters who are first starting out and
Yeah.
want to play but don't really have the foggiest idea about how to approach it. And then yeah, I think you've really hit on the head. Like digging into character relationship to these NPCs is like what a great cool opportunity there is to do that with a character who isn't the villain, who isn't the
Yeah.
sort of like long-standing threat who we are primed to sort of hate as characters, but then as the players who love storytelling, we're like, oh
Mm.
yes, I get to interact with the interesting
Yeah.
conflicted bad guy. Like having a character who is as important to the acceleration of the story, who isn't necessarily in opposition, is a really fun and interesting and
Mm.
juicy a thing to have. And I think like some character classes have it built in
Yeah.
already, and like the obvious example is like warlocks, but clerics too, to an extent, have a sort of larger than life uh guiding, I don't know, voice
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
is a good way of putting it, that is that has their own goals that the character is sort of working in tandem to service, and then giving that opportunity to the whole party and having the whole party have the opportunity to develop that kind of relationship is fun, is fascinating. It's a great way to structure, especially for a new DM, because it's like, well, this guy's kind of your boss. You
Yeah.
you either listen to what he says, or you have to find a new way to make money and learn to live and all that kind of stuff.
We did an episode recently on Big Bad Evil Guys, and
Mm.
Sage the Mage was our guest, and he
Uh-huh.
was saying, yes, that's his Christian name. He was
Yes,
saying,
yes, I'm
yeah,
sure.
he was saying how sometimes when he's starting a campaign, he'll get the backstories of the characters first, and that's how he thinks of his BBG based on kind of
Hmm.
like where the character's goal is in this campaign, what have driven them to go on a quest, and then he kind of works out, well, based on that, I know they'll dislike this, and that's what my
Sure.
character will be. With that kind of mentality, with a patron, is that ever a thing that kind of comes up when you're thinking of creating patrons?
100%. Yeah, I think the nice thing about patrons is that you can have a much more sort of open dialogue about how they weave into character backstory
Mm,
from the jump, because you're not keeping unless the patron is secretly actually the big bad evil guy, which
yeah, yeah,
a great way to go about it. But like you can be much more upfront with your players in character creation and stuff about like this, the way that your characters are going to interact with the world is going to be very fundamentally sort of colored by their relationship to this person or this entity or this or organization, if you're using a faction as a patron.
yeah,
um and so you can ask them, how does your backstory dovetail into working with or alongside or for this uh, non-you part of the story?
yeah,
And I think that's a really incredible way to get player buy-in, is to give them the opportunity to weave themselves into the fabric of the story on their own, as opposed to sort of saying like, oh, they've given me this, how can I then uh like build what I think they would like,
mm,
or what I think they'll connect to. You can give them the opportunity to do it themselves, and then you sort of know that they are going to be interested in that because they thought of it and chose to say it out loud to you.
yeah. So, do you think that is also kind of like the big separation between, for instance, a warlock patron
Mm-hmm.
and a patron for everybody? Obviously, one's singular, one is for the group, but also they've kind of got something to work from because they're helping build that character out. They're fleshing out
Mhm.
that character's like wants and needs, what they look like possibly. Whereas a warlock patron kind of comes with the territory of what you're selecting at the beginning. Same with clerics, right? What they're
Mhm.
selecting that kind of like fleshes out as to who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. That's already kind of set in stone within the lore, the what kind of the realms of D&D. Often, unless they're kind of really customizing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, unless they're making up something on your own, which I encourage you to do. I think
Mm,
if you are a if you're a new player and you're like, I want to play a warlock because I like the idea, like definitely use one of the millions of
yeah.
pre-generated demons or whatever, but also come up with your own demon if you think that that would be like a fun thing to do. Yeah, I mean, I think um especially for new players, giving them a taste of like what it is for the DM to come up with their storytelling elements and giving them the opportunity to say like we are building this world together as opposed to you
Mm,
are coming and being a guest in my world. That is group cohesion like you can't believe, because
yeah.
if everybody is creating world and creating story together, people just care more, because like uh, uh, losing losing the NPC or an NPC getting abducted by goblins that the DM made up and said, "Hey, I would like it very much if you cared about this person."
Yeah.
Is going to work less often than like, "Oh, that person that you told me about, I am putting them in danger because you told me about them."
Yeah, you've already got the
There's
attachment as a player, right?
yeah,
Whereas, if you're stealing someone else you've never heard of, you're probably going to do the opposite of what the DM wants anyway. Like subconsciously, the players are already going, I know they want me to
how
go
is this a
left, so I'm
trick?
going
Yeah,
right. Like
yeah.
it's that kind of thing. So you've almost kind of always got to go the opposite way as to what you first think of doing as a DM, I suppose.
Yeah, totally, totally. Or you at least have to say like, what is the way that I anticipate people's storytelling brains are going to go here, and what is the furthest opposite way that they could
Yes.
go? And the answer will often lie somewhere in between those two things. Yeah.
So we've two questions left. This next question is how would you instigate a patron coming into the world? So I know it could literally just be a person, right? It could literally be the bartender who's got odd jobs. It could be as simple as that. But what's the way that has worked for you, would you say, or recommend people like first time listeners thinking about using group patrons now they've heard this episode? What's a great way to get people going so that it's not too complicated, not too much to have to think about?
Totally. Yeah. I think there's two sort of main ways that I would maybe suggest going about it. Like the first is having it be baked in from the very beginning in like
Right.
session zero discussion, sort of saying like, uh, you know, here is a story that I think would be interesting if we all like work together for this, elder dragon, or we all worked
Mm,
together in service of this this aristocrat, or whatever. In your sort of session zero pitching of the story that you all want to tell together, you can sort of weave that in there, and then if you have buy-in on that particular front, you just hit the ground running right from the
yeah.
jump. But if you want to introduce a group patron like uh, after the adventurers have sort of gotten up on their feet and have decided to cohere together, I think probably the best way to do it is very much the same way that the sort of Bethesda games will have you do it. It's like when you arrive in a new place that has a sort of grander sense of scale than you have
Mm,
previously been, having a robust sort of suite of options for them to discover as they explore, like, if they've only ever been in the village, once they get to the city, like that's the place where like a lot of a lot of these group patrons can sort of make themselves
they've got
uh
connections.
yeah,
They've got the web is weaved, and they've know everyone who to talk to and where to get things from.
totally, yeah,
Right.
yeah. And then I think having you can still introduce you can introduce a group patron the same way that you would introduce like a single NPC with a quest. Like, if you're like, you go out please go get this, cursed diamond from this crypt for me, please. And then when you come back and you have this cursed diamond, you hand it back to the person who's going to give you money for it. Great opportunity right there. As soon as you've completed a quest, for that person to be like, I actually happen to represent a concerned interest who's looking for people with your particular set of skills. And then, like,
Yeah.
you know, they can dip their toes in, see if like, oh, this organization or this person feels like it could be interesting in the story that we're trying to sort of tell together. That's that you can sort of like hook them
Mm.
right there. I think you have to be prepared for them to be like, I don't know, if they go into this sort of like big organizational web that you've built and they're like, this isn't really necessarily the vibe that I was feeling, or I
Yeah.
don't know necessarily how this is going to be in service of what my character specifically wants. um you have to be ready for them to not bite on that particular one, and that's okay, and that's totally fine.
You'll just
um
rebrand it, like
yeah,
an old lady with a donkey outside that city, and give them the same quest, but with her name, and they're like, "Oh yeah, of course I'll help her," and it's
right,
exactly the
totally,
same.
totally,
Just keep
yes, yeah,
misleading, yeah.
yeah, and I think if you're that's when you sort of dig into character backstory and see like, oh, what is it that they want, what is it that they have left the security of their pastoral home to go out and
Mm,
try to fight vampires about it. Like, what is animating them to get out there, and then finding a way to weave some part of what they want into the organization or the individual's goals also is a great way to get
yeah.
purchase.
It's quite often the case. I'm in a Dragon Delves campaign at the moment where the DMs link to all these kind of one shots together.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, our backstories, I mean, they weren't spoken about before. We introduced them as we started playing and we're role playing through it. But they're very much the reason why we're going to fight the dragons. Like it
Mm-hmm.
makes complete sense. Well, we wouldn't just do it for someone's doing it for gold, someone's doing it for
Mm-hmm.
fame. Some people literally just don't like dragons because this happened, and they're happily
Sure.
give the gold to the person who loves the gold and stay at the back when the person who wants the fame gets the fame, and they're just there to take dragons down. Do you know what I mean? So
Totally.
it's the same premise of like what each character is kind of wanting to be served and their purpose in that world.
Yeah. I think that's actually you Dragon Delves is a great sort of is a great adventure book that would really benefit from a group patron, much like the other sort of like anthology ones that they've put out recently, like Radiant Citadel, Golden
Mm,
Vault, Candlekeep Mysteries. Like, those are great for group patron input, because those are sort of like little more self-contained adventures, and if you're all working for this organization who's sending you out on these self-contained adventures, there's a real world where you can play more consistently with people's like
mm,
schedules and availabilities and stuff. um, if everybody in the group knows that we all work for this organization or this individual and they send us out on quests, not everybody has to be
yeah,
at every single session. If it's like, oh yeah, I had to get my shift at the adventuring store covered this
yeah, yeah.
particular week, and then but the group patron still has like goals that need the goals that need furthering. It's a great, I find it is a great campaign format for groups that are, for whatever one of a million very understandable reasons, aren't able to meet as frequently as maybe anybody has the aspirations to. Is like, they have this goal, we're following them because we work for them, and they're going to send us out on this 1 to 3 session adventure, and then when we come back we can swap out our party composition. People can
Mm.
test out new characters if they are sort of like, if the campaign is architectured around the specific organizations of a specific person or guild or whatever. Yeah.
So in that sense, then that obviously in D&D, the group patronage works for sending people on missions, kind of having like a recurring kind of place to get quests
Mm.
and a bit of RP involved, relationships built that way. And there's like definitely consistency because of you're using a group patron. But then also as a DM and as the people off the table, beyond the table,
Mm.
you've got a tool there to kind of an excuse as to why people aren't there that week. As
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a great tool in and out of the book.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, if someone is on if truly if like a player's on vacation for like a week or two and is just not able to make the session, it's very easy for the patron to just be like, "Oh yeah, I sent him to go do a different thing. So you're a
Yes.
cleric down this week." Yeah. And
Yeah.
like I don't know, I can't tell you how many crazy like teleportation trap contrivances I've had to come up with to be like, Danny can't make it this week, so we have to find a reason why in the middle of this dungeon, all of a sudden, Ognash the Destroyer has to dip or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah,
Amazing. Well,
it's an easy solve for that kind of frictional problem. Yeah.
and Danny, if you are listening, stop making excuses, man.
Yeah,
Just turn
yeah.
up for your
Buckle
sessions.
down.
Yeah,
Buckle
Steve.
down. I
Steve is
don't
how
care
to
that
really
it's
work.
yeah, I don't care that it's your child's first birthday. Get back over here.
That
Yeah.
child will have more birthdays.
More
This
birthdays.
is dire consequences right here. Okay, last question then. Can you give an example of when you used a group patron or played in a session where one was used, and I guess effectively?
Totally. Yeah. I actually the most recent campaign that I started, I worked a sort of group patron in as a like session zero kind of relationship to build. Um, it was a group of like relatively new players, one very experienced player, and then other people who either hadn't played in like 10 plus years or who had
Mm,
never played before. And I thought like, well, this is a good way to sort of like cohere them together right off the bat. I was like, I was thinking about working with a group patron. Who do you guys feel like maybe you would want to work for or alongside? And I sort of provided a list of options. Um, and we sort of decided that they were all the support staff on tour for a like rock star bard who's
amazing.
like traveling around the countryside. And one of them was also playing a bard. So he's like, I'm the backup singer who has dreams of supplanting this person. And one of them is a big tough orc guy who's running away from a bad family dynamic. He's like, I'm the roadie. And like
Yeah,
they all sort of bought into like the analog map of in the fantasy world that we're all building together, what is the equivalent of like these sort of spinal tapian
yes,
archetypes of
love
all
it.
these characters, and it was great. It's sort of like instead of like we are a merry band of brave adventurers, it's like, oh, we now have to the problems that we are having to solve sort of revolve around references to like these classic, like larger than life, like rock star kind of
Mm,
stories. Like I started them at like level 2, and their first thing that they had to contend with was like, oh, the last town we left, the patron, the big rock star bar, ran up a huge gambling debt and then skipped town about it. So we have to make a bunch of money so that we don't get our legs broken by a thieves guild at the next place we get to.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. That's a very good example, especially it's very out of the box that it's not necessarily like the generic kind of session or
Yeah,
story like through
yeah.
line.
Yeah, totally. And I think like the adventure that I had planned, like they were all very gamesome and on board for like, yeah, just put me in wherever and tell me what we need to go get and we'll go do it. But like, they were all very much bought in on this idea that we came up together to the point where they were like, well, let's solve the problem in a sort of like, you know, rock and roll in the fantasy world way, as opposed to like, well, I guess I just go hit him with my sword.
Yeah, yeah.
They got like held up by goblins on the road, and instead of like, I guess we got to kill all these goblins, they were like, secret show, we can sell some
Yeah.
merch, and they did it, and it was great. I was like, I would be I would be such a jerk if I didn't allow for that very fun idea to work, especially given the very good roles that they had about it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. That is, yeah, it sounds like great players to be honest, because
Yeah.
they're willing to get stuck into anything, and then they're really committed, and it does require commitment to play something kind of that left field as well, which is really
Yeah,
nice.
totally. I find that with new players in particular, like new players tend like the life cycle of D&D players tends to be like, well, I don't know what I can't do, so I might as well try anything. And then as people like
Yes.
really learn the rules, they're like, no, I can't do that. And then as people sort of like become so comfortable with the rules that they start transcending their feelings of limitation, they're like, hmm, what if I did in fact stack three talking raccoons on top of each other and called them my date to this
Yeah.
princely ball or whatever, and then you sort of come full circle. You rediscover your inner newbie.
Yeah, you take it. Yeah, like I said, it's the comfort of like just willing to go
Yeah,
with anything. You're comfortable in knowing what you can do, right? So it's better to be that way, I think. The end of the
totally.
spectrum is very equal, like very identical, which is really nice.
Mm.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time today. I think that's a really good episode, especially as one of the episodes where I had no idea going in until you explained to me more so about group patrons than what I thought they could be. So I really appreciate that. Um,
100%.
Today's adventure is sadly coming to a close. We're back in next week with the topic, where does lube come from? And as always, thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to join in the D&D action, then please follow us on Instagram at How to Play D&D, or check out the link in our bio to join our Discord server. And also check out Black Mark Clo on Instagram for cool D&D clothing. Steve, where can we find you, and what do you do?
I'm an actor, writer, producer. I am based in Los Angeles, so I'm one of a million. But you can find me on Instagram at Steve_C_fish. You can also check me out in a D&D capacity at Pick Your Poison Productions. I semi-regularly play a live in a bar PvP D&D sort of like WWE SmackDown style fight
Love it.
that then gets streamed on Twitch. It's a great time, and I can't believe we're one of the only groups that does it. It feels insane that more people aren't doing
It
it.
sounds amazing. Well,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
all the show notes, all of Steven's links will be in our show notes as always, along with thumbnails and links in our socials. So yep, please check that out. I have totally forgot what I meant to say next, which I've been doing this for 2 years. So it turns out it's just my name. I've been Connor Kinsey.
I've been Steve Fisher.
Good day.